People ask all the time, like, what do you shoot? And I'm like, whatever is available.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a 30 cal kind of guy generally for hunting. So I usually run a 300 Win Mag just because I hunt in the West. So I hunt a lot of elk and I hunt a lot of mule deer and things like that. So I like having the knockdown power that the 300 Win Mag provides without absolutely obliterating the animal. The 300 PRC is another really good option in that regard. The thing that's nice about the 300 Winnie and the 300 PRC is they're also very capable of long range shooting, right? So I can engage targets, 1,400 yards, out to a mile even, right? And not have to be like holding all of the mills for elevation, right? So that's where I like to lean. However, the 7 PRC now is just kind of taking the industry by storm. 28 Nosler, which is the platform you have, just there's some really really great calibers out there that are capable of crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's, and it really just comes down to personal preference. Um,
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today we have an amazing guest, Danny from Seekins Precision. You guys definitely want to get to know Danny a little bit. He is a father, he's a husband, he loves long range shooting, he loves hunting, and he's just an all around great individual, along with Seekins Precision being an awesome company that you'll get to know a little bit more about today. With that being said, guys, before we get into this episode, I do want to give a quick thanks to you for supporting the show. However it is, whether it's subscribing to the channel on YouTube, following along in the audio only versions on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and supporting the sponsors and partners of the show by going and getting your gear at these trusted sources from BlackOvis over to Leopold to Grizzly Coolers and First Phorm, all of the above. Guys, definitely get in on the mailing list. I send one email out a week to let you guys know what's going on and what deals may be out there for you. And right now, during kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday situation, I'm sending you the best and exclusive offers from these amazing partners of the show. Excuse me. So definitely go check them out. I'm going to leave all the links down below. If you're not supporting monetarily because you are maybe on a tight budget or you've got other things going on, I 100% understand that. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow along and leave a review on the audio only platforms. It means more than you know, helps a ton. Now let's get into this conversation here with Danny and Seekins Precision. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and here at RedBeard Outdoors, we talk about faith, family, fitness, and the outdoors. I've got an amazing guest for you guys today. We have Danny Nelson, and he works over at Seekins. You guys have probably seen Seekins rifles. They make some amazing rifles, everything from carbines to long-range precision rifles and everything in between. If you want a heavier setup for target, if you want a hunting setup, like we'll get into, one of the rifles that I have set up for hunting from these guys, and the amazing Nosler crew as well with their ammo. We'll get into all of that today. But also, guys, Danny's just a guy that loves his family. We were talking about how he's in the middle of, I don't know if you're selling puppies, but he's got some puppies that are coming in right now. And still, he stayed up all night having these puppies. And then his wife took over the shift so that he could come to do the podcast. So now I feel really special. But with all of that, Danny's a overall rounded guy, not just a gun nut. He loves guns, but he loves his family, loves hunting, loves the outdoors, and everything else. So I want to bring him on to talk about Seekins, answer some of your guys' questions that you've had, maybe about Seekins and why they are the brand that they are, and then of course who Danny is. So with that being said, Danny, who are you, man?
well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Always look forward to meeting and working with good people like yourself. So I appreciate you having me here. So, like you said, I'm just a guy, just a regular guy that loves guns, loves God, loves my family. Right? I think you hit it on the head. That's kind of what drives me as far as who I am as a person or those things. So I'm super fortunate and lucky to have the job that I have that helps provide for my family and gives me opportunity to worship and serve God the way that I do, as well as provide and take care of my family and get out and do something that I love to do with great people, which is shooting guns, hunting, spending time in the outdoors or on the range with people with our products and guns, doing demos and trainings and just shooting and having good times.
Exactly. That's awesome. And, guys, I just spent probably 20 minutes here with Danny just talking about a couple things because I talk a lot about archery. I know quite a bit about it. I'm not an expert by any means, but I've learned quite a bit over the last couple of years. And now I'm trying to play catch up because I was getting into rifles and then archery hit me like a ton of bricks and I went down that rabbit hole. And now I'm like, now I need to catch up because I love guns. I love rifles. I want to get into long range shooting here in the next year or so and learn that skill as well because I'd love to contribute to not only if I can't get an archery hunt, but a rifle hunt, but also, predator protection or management and other things as well. And then, of course, the hobby of being able to ring steel at 1,000+ yards or a mile, or you probably look at 1,000 yards like it's 100 yards to me. So, it's just all of those things sound like a lot of fun. And you're definitely the guy to talk to about that. So let's start off with Seekins Precision Rifles or Seekins Precision. You guys are up in Idaho, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the shop's based in Lewiston, Idaho. Glenn Seekins, the founder of the company, he's from there. He bounced back and forth between there and Homer, Alaska. So he grew up hunting and shooting guns, and at a young age, he started working in machine shops and all sorts of just different jobs. Or he would tell me he wanted a motorcycle when he was a kid, so he would buy like used parts or broken parts off of people for super cheap, and then he'd fix it. And he built a motorcycle from like a Frankenstein motorcycle at the age of like 15. So he's always been a guy like that is hands on, but he can look at something and fix it or make it better. And so he's from Lewiston, Idaho, and that's where the shop's based. And we're proud to say that we're based in Idaho, and everything that we do is American made, which is cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's definitely not something that's easy to do nowadays. There's a lot going into having an American-made product that people don't understand. And obviously, your rifles aren't I'd say you're not in the cheap bracket per se. You guys make precision rifles and everything from lightweight for hunting, if you're into the lightweight market, or you got that middle ground of weight, and then you have the heavier target stuff as well. Like we mentioned, carbines for if you're into more of the carbine style rifles. So let's talk a little bit about the story of Seekins Precision, because I honestly don't even know the full story. You got me intrigued by talking about the owner being like Midas, King Midas over there. So we need to dive into that story for people that don't know a ton about Seekins, where it started, the year it started, and then kind of from there what you've seen and what you know about the start of it.
Yeah. So like I said, Glenn Seekins is the guy that's founded the company, and he still is the head of the company and running it, and very involved in all of the product design and new products and things that are coming down the pipe for us, which is kind of a constant thing. We're always innovating, always trying to find new ways to improve the shooting industry in all of the different platforms that you mentioned, right? So hunting, competition, tactical, military, police and law enforcement, all that kind of stuff. So how it started is, I mean, Glenn's been a shooter for a long time, grew up hunting, of course, but also at a young age started doing like 2-gun, 3-gun competitions, PRS competitions, and just was a machinist and was working in machine shops. And so he started building his own guns for those competitions, and was like, man, I make pretty good guns that shoot pretty good. Maybe I should try selling some. And but it didn't start with guns. Actually, it started with scope rings. He was on a whitetail hunt in Idaho, just a public land hunt, and whitetail buck of the century, right? Like once in a lifetime public land whitetail trophy buck stepped out, 160 yards, just a chip shot, right? And pulls his gun up, miss, racks another one, miss, and he's like, "What the like? I'm a pretty good shooter. My gun's dialed. I know." Like, anyway, buck takes off, and he looks down at his scope, and his rings were smushed forward, and he just was like, "This sucks, right? Like, just missed a buck of a lifetime because my rings were jacked, just banging around in the truck or whatever." So he went home and drew up a design for a precision ring that was capable of withstanding the use and abuse that your average guy is going to put it through, or guys that are going to do above average use and abuse, like myself or my brother Matty. We'll talk about him here in a few minutes. But to this day, so that was back in 2003. He started his company in 2004. And there was a time where like, an order of 20 sets of scope rings was a big deal. And, now we make anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 sets of scope rings a month. So it's evolved into some pretty cool things, but that's where it all started, was a whitetail hunt that went awry because cheap rings. And the cool thing about that ring design that he came up with in 2003 and started making and selling in 2004, it's still the same ring design we use today. It hasn't changed.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I love hearing stories like that when people don't just sit back and complain about, oh, well, this piece of garbage, blah, blah, blah. But he actually went back. I'm sure people got to hear about how he missed the buck of a lifetime. But at the same time, he went back and said, look, I'm going to fix this. And with his knowledge, was able to go through and apply that. It's unfortunate, and, people understand that I'm a man of faith, obviously, through the podcast. But sometimes I feel like, even though it's kind of silly to think God's involved in the gun industry, but putting him in that spot to where unfortunately he had to miss that, it hurt so bad that he needed to go and create this. And now he's got this business that has people employed, that makes a premium product for people that want it or need it, for hunting and target, and even more so now than just scope rings. I definitely would say that, God had a hand in that, to say this needs to be frustrating enough to push you in that direction, because this is something that's needed. So that's it sucks, but at the same time, that's a cool story to hear that he went back and innovated based on that pain point.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely.
So then from the scope.
Oh, sorry, I was just say that was the catalyst, and it's evolved from there, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as we get into some of your questions. But yeah, Glenn is. We don't spend a lot of time talking about faith at the shop or whatever, but I know he's a man of faith as well, and he attributes a lot of his success not to his own abilities, but to the people around him and the divine intervention and things that he's seen throughout his life too, for sure.
Yeah, and just for people that don't know, and I don't know, I actually don't know if I've ever met Glenn, because he might have introduced himself the way that he that you say he does,
Yeah.
and I just was like, okay, cool, and shook his hand, and obviously respectful, but he, the way Danny explained it to me was he'll introduce himself as a machinist. He's not the face of the company, and you guys probably recognize Matty Nelson. He's very loud and puts off a lot of good energy. And he's a big dude as well. He's a tall guy.
Yeah.
And he wears a cowboy hat. He's all into the outdoors. Loves, I've seen his fitness challenges that he's been doing recently, and getting ready for the hunt. He loves riding horses and all of that. On top of the fact that he was part of Special Forces, which I find out at the Hunt Expo that he was in the same group as one of my scoutmasters growing up in North Carolina. So that was a small world, right? But Matty is not the face of he's kind of the face of the company on social media, but he is not the owner of the company. So I guess with that, is Glenn ever? First off, have I met Glenn? Do you know
I don't know.
Okay, was he at the Hunt Expo?
No, he didn't make it to Western.
Okay,
so he
then
usually
probably not. I probably haven't then.
Yeah, I mean, he put his time in, 18, 20 years of hopping the show circuits by himself. And he finally got enough jamokes in place, like me and my brother, to go and handle that load for him. He's earned the right to kick back, but he still he makes it to SHOT Show every year. And then he, where and when he can, he'll pop into some of those other shows, like the Western Hunt Expo and Dallas Safari Club, and a few of these other ones that we hit in the beginning part of every year. But yeah, if you've ever had the opportunity to meet Glenn and you don't know who he is out of the gate, he will never tell you he's Glenn Seekins, owner of Seekins Precision. He will tell you he is awesome. Glenn, and he's a machinist at the shop. I mean, he's just not the kind of guy that looks for glory and for the spotlight. And Matty, like you said, has become kind of the face of the company via social media, just because that's the world we live in. You got to kind of have some sort of representation there. Matty hates social media. We all kind of do, but it's a necessary evil for business these days. And Matty was kind of tailor-made for what he does at Seekins, which is multifaceted. He's not just, the Instagram guy. He does tons outside of that. But he's got the energy, he's got the volume, he's got the vibe. He's the perfect face for it. And so we talk all the time about how secure of a man Glenn Seekins is to have built, a multi-million-dollar company that employs, 76 and growing employees, right? Just incredible organization that he's built, and that he lets, other people be recognized as the face of that.
I bring that up because it takes, you can kind of tell when you meet someone if they're into social media for fame, for the glory of it, which I honestly like, especially over the last little bit. I keep telling my wife, I'm like, I just want to be able to meet people, talk to people through a podcast, and then dump all my stuff onto someone else to go and post and do all of that. Like, that's not the fun part for me. Some people enjoy that, and that's cool. But going back to Glenn, like, just knowing that he's not in it for the fame, he's in it because he genuinely wanted to build a company. Well, first he just wanted to hit a deer.
Yeah.
Right. That's where it started.
Yeah,
he wanted to be able to shoot a deer. Yeah, and not worry about his equipment. But going from that to now, again, building a company, I don't think people understand. Even when you're out voting, and I'm not going to turn this too political, but when you're making decisions, even if you're not an entrepreneur, keep in mind the entrepreneurs. It's people like Glenn that are building companies that, even if you don't agree with guns, he's a machinist, right? And so he started there, and he's building things for people to be able to have a job. And that hits real home for me because he's bringing jobs here in America, creating them in that local community up there in Idaho. And that's a big deal. And so for me, that takes a lot of work. There's a lot of late nights, sleepless nights, paperwork and things that people just don't want to deal with. And for him to not want to take the glory along with all that hard work, like, that speaks to the man that he is. And so definitely a lot of kudos and respect. And hopefully one day I'll make it up there and get to meet him up at the shop while he's doing his machine work.
Yeah, man. You're always welcome. Yeah. We'll roll the red carpet out anytime.
I appreciate that. So with that, so we've got a little look into, it started with missing the deer of a lifetime. Hopefully he's had a second chance at a deer of a lifetime by now.
He's killed many.
Yeah. Yeah. So Seekins has been around for 20 plus years.
20 years. This year was our 20-year mark, which was pretty cool. So
I do remember seeing that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Again, going back into the entrepreneur, I don't remember the stats, but a very high number of companies that are started end up failing within the first year.
Right.
For a company to build over 20 years in a space that, let's be honest, you say you and your brother don't really like doing social media. Social media doesn't really like you guys either. Just to be frank, like, they don't like guns.
Nope.
And so to be able to build a company and then use that as marketing, finding ways to be creative. I spoke with Maddie over at Nosler about that. That's her whole, a big portion of her job anyways, to not get flagged and having to find ways around the algorithm to not get flagged so that they can still reach their core audience. That's a job in and of itself. And so the way tides are turning kind of against your industry for you guys to have built so much in these 20 years is fantastic. And so through those 20 years, what are some things that maybe highlights that stick out to you that people should know about Seekins?
You mentioned briefly earlier, I referred to Glenn as King Midas, just because the guy doesn't miss. I'm sure if you asked him, he would tell you otherwise. But from my perspective, in the last 6 years that I've been in his employ, he just, every time he makes a decision, it seems to be the right one, and it's pretty funny to watch and cool to watch. And so whenever he comes in, it's like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Now it's just like, yep, 3 bags full, here we go, let's do it. No one even says like, well, maybe we should. It's just like, okay, you got it figured out, we'll follow, let's do it. But that, that goes way back to, he started, with making scope rings. He rented time on a CNC machine in the shop he was working at to make his rings after hours. And then he bought his own CNC machine when he was 20, I think is what it was. He bought his first CNC machine and started making parts. And then, like I said, he was a competition shooter, still does a lot of shooting, but he was heavy in the 2-gun, 3-gun world for a long time. And so he started building parts on these machines that he was renting and buying for his competition guns, and started making his own comp guns. And so he kind of read the writing on the wall in the early thousands, 2005, 6, and 7, at the upcoming elections and things like. Again, not turning political, but he just reads the industry well, and the industry is very much affected by political sway.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was like, well, I'm gonna start making AR parts in like those mid thousands years, 2005, 06, 07. Was making precision AR parts and selling a ton of them, right? Gas blocks, safety selector switches, just little build parts. And then in 07, he's like, well, I make all the parts, I might as well make the gun. So he started making precision ARs, small frame and large frame. So the SP10 was born, which is our large frame AR, as well as a handful of variations of some small frame gas guns, which is as soon as that election took place, he woke up the next morning a millionaire, because people were like, "Got to buy an AR now," right? And so that was just that was a business decision he made that coincided exactly at the time that it needed to, for his company to catapult forward to the next level, where he could hire more employees, expand the shop space, buy more machines, and continue to build. And then in 2015, him and Lucas Mattoon, who's the head of our quality control, and Eli Nightingale, who is the head of our programming department. They're, Eli and Lucas were like been there from the beginning, pretty much. Like that first year of business after Glenn started hiring people, those were two of the first employees that he had, and they're still there at Seekins, which is cool. They were sitting around the shop one weekend, just kind of working on some things, and Glenn was like, "Hey, we have like a bajillion-dollar machine shop, and I don't have a hunting rifle that I love. Let's make a bolt gun." So they designed an action, like a weekend project, and it turned into the Pro Hunter 1, right? Which as soon as they launched that, we went in back order, and we've never been out of back order since.
That's awesome.
So that 2016.
Now, is that just to show? Is that the one? Do I have the PH1 or PH2?
You have the PH2, yeah. So it's actually,
we'll get there.
It went through a few variations of the PH1, and then in 2018, 2019 actually is when it switched to the PH2. So there's just a few redesigns with the stock and a few different things that we did that helped us with some cost savings on the manufacturing side. So instead of releasing a second model that we could upcharge for because it had different features or whatever, we actually reduced the price from the PH1 to the PH2. Because we were saving money, and Glenn was really big on making sure that our customers saved that money as well. So
That's cool.
that PH2 is an out-of-the-box, semi-custom, standard production rifle that's sub $2,000, right? So anyway, that's how the bolt gun side started. Was in 20. Yeah, there you go. That's the PH2 right there. That's
so
Urban Shadow.
While we're talking about it here, I guess name some of the differences between the PH1 and PH2, and then we'll kind of walk through the PH2 here.
So the primary difference came in the stock. So the original PH1 was a hand-laid carbon fiber stock, which was a very extensive process. Obviously, hand-laid carbon fiber is awesome. Everybody loves carbon fiber. But the problem was the manufacturing of it. We were getting 40 stocks a week. Based on and we had 4 guys working 12-hour shifts a day, just working stocks to get 40 stocks in a week. So it was brutal as far as production capacity. So we switched to a carbon composite injection mold. So it's still a carbon fiber product, but it's that injection molded process. So the setup was longer. However, we went from doing like 40 stocks a week to 180 stocks a week. Now we're capable of even more than that, significantly more than that, because of our process and more molds and more work on that regard. But that was the primary difference that was done when we switched from the PH1 to the PH2. And hand-laid carbon fiber is more expensive than the injection molded process was, and so that couple $100 savings, we switched and lowered the price from $2,200 is what the PH1 used to be, down to $18.95, which is what that PH2 MSRP is.
So most of it was in the stock.
Yeah.
As far as pricing goes.
Yep. And then there's been a few as we've launched different lines, right? So the PH1, the PH2, that's kind of, I call that the do-it-all rifle, because it's that mid-level price point, as well as that mid-level weight class. It comes in right around 7 pounds, so it's super light, so it's still capable of packing all over the woods and the mountains without feeling like you're carrying the kitchen sink. But it is heavy enough to sit down and shoot at the range all day and feel very comfortable, like you're not getting walloped and kicked by a mule in the shoulder every time. But that PH1, PH2 line is where we started back in 2015, 2016, and then evolved into our lightweight platforms, the Havoc Element, and now the Havoc Slam that we have, as well as the bolt gun side evolved into the competition world. So we have the Havoc Hit, which is our chassis, more comp style rifle. And then there's some new things coming down the pipe that I can't let out of the bag yet on both ends of that spectrum, the heavier comp side, as well as some more down the lightweight side.
Well, sweet. Well, let's walk through then the PH2, some of the features here, just for people to be able to see. And then I'll be doing, an episode on it later, now that I've got, a scope on it. And once I get it all completely zeroed in, this is the 28 nozzler version, which, I want to have a 28 nozzler. It's hard to find guns that'll do, or that you can get a 28 nozzler chambering for, just because it's, for some reason, it's around that just didn't really take off as well as it could have. I mean, it's got great ballistics and many other good things to it. But anyway, let's start from the butt pad and then work our way up to, maybe some of your favorite or highlight features of this rifle, the PH2.
Yeah. So the first thing to note about all of our guns is we make virtually 100% of the rifle in-house. So, for instance, on that gun, the only thing that we do not make in-house is the rubber butt pad and the trigger. Everything else we have complete quality control process over, which is nice. It helps make sure that the parts that we manufacture and that we ship out the door to end users are top-notch, the best quality that we can make, right? So when you farm out to other machine shops, you fall victim to their tolerance standards and things like that. And even if you are the one dictating what those standards are supposed to be, I mean, you still get a batch of 100 parts and 60 of them are good and 40 of them aren't, right? Like, and there's any number of reasons as to why that would be the case. Tools break, wear down, grips on the material don't hold after a long time. Like, just different reasons why that would be the case. Because we manufacture all of that rifle in house, we catch those things mid run of a batch of parts, and we can stop that batch, fix the problem if there is one, and then keep running the batch, and we're still making precision parts within our very small window of tolerance, right? So that's one of the things that I like to start with as far as the features that are nice about that rifle is the quality control process that goes into every piece we control. So, like I said, the stock itself is a carbon composite injection mold. Every stock is hand painted by our in-house Cerakote applicators. So they all have a similar pattern, but each one is truly unique, which is kind of fun. We have 3 standard color options. That one you have there's the Urban Shadow, which is the orange and the gray. We have the Mountain Shadow, which is a green, like a dark green and a gray. And then we have the Desert Shadow, which is like a FDE and a Coyote Tan, which all 3 colors sell phenomenally for us, which is fun. Some guys love the Urban Shadow. Some guys don't like the Urban Shadow because the orange. It just depends on your personal flavor, I guess. Of course, you like the orange, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Orange, black, and gray is kind of that's my standard coloration.
Yeah. Me and Maddie are ginger on the face as well, so we're cool. Yeah. I dig it. Anyway, so the stock, like I said, it is very lightweight. That carbon composite injection mold is very light. It's very rigid, so it helps with recoil mitigation. The design of the stock, it has that pistol grip with the palm swell. Again, is that whole design is to help with that recoil management is you're trying to make sure that you break a clean shot and have a good quick follow-up shot for a second one if you need to put another round in the animal you're hunting, or heaven forbid you miss and you gotta break a second shot after you make a correction. So
And I'll just say, just getting back into rifles, obviously most hunting stocks almost encourage your hand to kind of wrap around back here.
yeah,
And so, and you still can, but it's not as comfortable as shooting what would be proper technique. I'm going to do like this because, again, I'm not an expert.
yeah,
I'm just understanding that that's proper technique. It really does. There's a little swell here. I don't know if that camera's picking it up, but there's a little bit of a swell here on the palm portion right there. It gets
yeah,
wider for people, again, that are maybe just getting back into rifles and don't know what we're talking about there. And then your thumb rests on top back here just naturally.
yeah,
And so you're not tempted to wrap around, which can cause, just like for people, again, I'll keep going back to bows because I know a lot of my listeners are into archery. It's like when you grip the front or you grip the riser on a bow, you don't want your front fingers to put input into that riser and cause it to torque either way. And you're not trying to grip it like white knuckle the riser on a bow. Same thing with this being the quote unquote riser on your rifle. You want to just rest it there. You don't want it to be gripping and causing any kind of torque as you're pulling through the shot. It's something that, I'm learning, and it's definitely helped a lot. But it's definitely super comfortable.
yeah.
I'll just say that.
Yeah, we get, when we're at shows and things and we're talking to end users and guys are picking our guns up off the rack and they're holding it, lots of people love it. And then, we always have a handful of people like, God, I just don't love that palm swell. And, 99% of the time I'm just like, all right, shoulder the rifle for me. And they'll throw it up. And sure enough, they've got that thumb wrapped around that palm swell. So the designs that we go with are all based on accuracy, right? So we want our systems to be as accurate as possible. And what we understand about a system is it's not just the gun, right? Your system's the gun, the glass, the rings, the ammo, and the shooter. And so if we can design a product to Mr. Miyagi, the shooter, right, into having better mechanics or technique, then we will do that so that they will have more success, right? Because, people will always find a reason why the gun isn't shooting good, and it's never them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because it's kind of blending in between, archery, rifle, and then I carry a pistol. I'm not, again, no expert at any of these, but I know enough that I carry a pistol for the last resort protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know enough about that too. That same thing, people are like, oh, it's the gun or it's the optic or whatever. It's never the person
Yeah.
in any of those cases, and it usually is the person. So
It tends to boil down. I mean, myself, I'll be the first to tell you, like, how I shoot on a day might depend on how much Monster I drank this morning, or if I've eaten in the last hour, right? Like there's so many variables that even guys, I feel like the guys that are the best shooters are the first ones to look in the mirror and say, what about myself, before they start pointing fingers at any of the kit, glass, gun, ammo, whatever. They say, like, okay, let me self-evaluate. Am I physically in the right place? Are my mechanics good? How was my trigger squeeze? Was my breathing good? All those details. They tend to dive into themselves as the weakest link in the system before they start diving into any of the kit. Anyway, so the palm swell, like you said, is designed to keep your hand relaxed so that instead of wrapping that thumb and inducing torque cant with your wrist into that system, you're just pulling with these three fingers on that palm swell. You're pulling straight back into your shoulder, and then that also helps with your trigger squeeze mechanics and keeping, if you're using the pad of your finger like you're supposed to, it keeps that trigger pull going straight back. Instead of, if I've wrapped my thumb, now I'm pulling kind of at almost like a 45 angle back into my right if I'm a right-handed shooter. So it's just one of those little things that, with a little bit of information and education, all of a sudden what might not feel like the most comfortable thing all of a sudden becomes very comfortable and makes sense as to why we have it that way. It also helps with
Yep.
the safety manipulation on the trigger because that's right there at the top. So
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly. Then let's, is there much you want to highlight here on the bolt? I pulled the bolt out, so it'll be easier to show on camera
yes,
here.
and I apologize. I should have maybe grabbed a bolt of my own so I could demonstrate, but you could probably do it as I walk you through it. But so the bolt itself, this is our Gen 2 bolt. There was nothing wrong with the Gen 1 bolt. The Gen 1 bolt used to be a 60% cock on open, 40% cock on closed, which limited the number of triggers we could run with it. And so we had lots of customers asking if they could run different triggers or if we could put different triggers in. And so we wanted to make one that was a little bit more compatible with more triggers. So the 100% cock on open is what that Gen 2 bolt is. But while we were at it, we're like, well, let's redesign this for a couple of reasons. One's for the hit line, which we can talk about in a minute. But the other one is if you've ever had to field strip and clean your bolt in the field and you're ripping your bootlace off and you forgot your tools at home or whatever, you're sacrificing a bootlace to try and get that bolt apart so you can clean it or whatever if you get ice or dirt or something in it. So if you take the firing pin shroud and you twist it, right? So the firing pin shroud goes at so that's the bolt head. So the other end of it, right? That firing pin shroud's that tapered part right there at the end. If you twist that, the whole firing pin assembly and the firing pin just come right out the back. Right, so go ahead. If you can twist it,
Oh yeah,
clockwise.
Yeah, to the left. And then what? How do I don't want to put too much.
You can.
Not that I'm going to break anything, but so I twisted it.
Yeah.
To that way.
Okay.
And then it just comes off.
Did it drop into the fired position?
Yep.
Yeah. So you got to twist it the other way. Sorry. I should have grabbed a bolt so I could have shown you. You got to put your man hands on now, so you can overpower it. But anyway, it pulls that whole firing pin assembly and the firing pin out the back, and then there's a little pin that holds the bolt head in place, and you just use the firing pin to push that pin out, and you can pull the bolt head off, and then you can clean it all and reassemble it just by putting that bolt head back in and the pin, and then twisting that firing pin shroud back in place.
It'll just twist. So you guys are seeing how dumb I am when it comes to this stuff now.
Oh, you're good. I told you to go the wrong way. You're supposed to twist it the other way. So you dropped it into
the
fired
position. Can I
put
the bolt back in and pull the trigger on it, or no?
No, you'll have to twist that shroud all the way out. So you can do it at the end here. I'll show you how to do it. It's easy. You just got to overpower that little notch it's in. So
okay, that little notch is what he's talking about right there.
Yeah. So you just got to twist it back out the other way.
Cool.
So, okay. I can't tell you how many times I've been like demoing this disassembly on the show floor, and like I'll be talking to a guy and not paying attention, and I'll twist it the wrong way, and I'm like, crap.
You're like, crap.
Yeah, and then I gotta sit there and overpower it. So if you can't get it, just grab a towel when we're done, and that'll give you a little extra grip on it, just like a little hand towel.
Cool.
The action itself, a couple cool things about it. It's a 20 MOA scope base that's mounted on top, right? And the action itself has ejection ports and gas ports and things that are designed to help pressures and things get released, which is good.
The base you're talking
yep,
about
that's the 20 MOA scope base. We do make different rails that you can, different MOA rails, right? So I think we have 30 MOA, 20 MOA, and a 0 MOA. So if you want,
and this is a 52 millimeter objective lens, so that's the way it looks with a.
With that 20 MOA base, and obviously the gap there between the barrel and the bell housing of the scope will depend on what size rings you're running. But anyway, the barreled actions are super cool. The reason that I call them semi-custom standard production rifles is because those we press fit every barreled action into the stock. So we have a compound that we stick into the bottom of the stock, and then we press the barrel action into the stock, and then that heat cures over a period of, it used to be 24 hours, but we have new technologies and things. It takes 4 hours for those barreled actions to heat press and to turn that resin into a rock solid thing. So if you pulled that barreled action out of that gun, you'd see a bunch of resin on the inside that's molded to the actual shape of that action. So that's a custom gun step that we put every rifle through. So we've, like I said, Glenn's found a way to take that standard production lineup where we're able to produce guns at a much higher rate and volume, while still maintaining the accuracy and performance of a custom build.
And I'll say too, just for people that if you run a sling, which I don't, But if you're one of the hunters that runs a sling, they have these mounts right here built into the quick release mounts here.
Yeah, the QD
You
flush
can just
cups.
clip in. Yeah. So I mean, and it's flush. It's not sticking out or anything. It doesn't really add any, bulk or anything to the stock itself, but they're already built in there. If you guys have slings that you use the QD sling, I personally don't run a sling. I feel like it gets in the way personally, but some people do, and that's cool.
Yeah. Cast mini nets catch lots of fish, right? So we
Yes.
tried to have all of the different variations of hunters out there and what they're doing. I mean, some guys are packing their rifle, 80 yards from the truck to the tree stand, right? Like, and other guys are hiking all over God's green earth just to get into the country they want to get into to shoot an animal, right?
Yep.
So multiple carrying options. There's the QD flush cups there, and then obviously like getting into bags and things, hunting kit that people use. There's all sorts of scabbards and things that you can throw those guns into. They have a sleek and low profile, which is nice, so that they fit very comfortably into bags, and so you're not catching all sorts of tree branches and stuff over your head. They drop down nice, which is good. So,
Sweet.
hand bedded. That's the word I couldn't think of. I'm sorry. I've been up all night, like you said, with my dog who's having puppies. So, anyway, hand bedded is that process I was just talking about, where they hand bed the barreled action into the stock, so it's a perfect fit, and that helps with accuracy, right? So the more surface contact with that action in that stock is going to give you a much better repeatable performance in your accuracy. The other thing that's nice to note is we have an extra 1/4 inch of tenon in the front of the receiver. So where the barrel threads into the receiver, we have an extra 1/4 inch of threading that's not standard for most industries. So we get as close to like a true monolithic system, a true free float system with that barrel through that barrel channel. And as that barrel gets shot, and as you have harmonics and barrel whip and all those things, you're not getting any touch points with the fore end of the stock and the barrel.
Awesome.
So that's pretty much most of the features about it. Like I said, it comes in at 7 pounds. We run the Kryptek primary triggers in them, which is a phenomenal single stage trigger. We get them factory set at 2.5 pounds. They are adjustable up to about 4 pounds, which is nice. Just gives that hunter a little bit of range where they like to be comfortable with that trigger. I keep mine right around 2.5 for my hunting rifles. And then all of our barrels on all of our platforms come threaded on the very end of the barrel there to receive a muzzle brake or a suppressor, depending on what it is you're running. But they all come with a thread protector on top. You can see it's that stippled part right there. It just spins right off. Yep. And then you can, whatever brake you're running, obviously Seekins Precision, we make a couple of different brakes. We have one called the Hunter brake, as well as the ATC compensator. Both are phenomenal brakes, just depending on the look you're going for. Yep, that's the PH2. I call it the do-it-all gun just because it crosses every platform, right? It's very capable for long range shooting. It's light, so it's good for hunting. It's hyper accurate, which is what everybody's looking for in a rifle nowadays. So and it's a phenomenal platform on the NRL circuit, which is good. So we have a handful of guys running our NRL version of the PH2 and just crushing it. Benny Cooley, Cody Leeper, a couple guys that are doing really well on the NRL circuit with the PH2.
And what gun is Andrew running from Montana Knife Company?
I don't know if he's running an Element or a PH2, but it's one of those two.
Yeah.
Love Andrew, by the way. Good dude. Check it out.
Yeah, he's such a good dude. Sweet. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I had. Obviously, it's fluted. For which I found, I used to think fluting was just for weight, but I guess. Oh yeah, in case I've got that hat sitting up there.
Yeah.
The fluting's for weight, but also I didn't realize it added rigidity as well to barrels.
So the number one reason for fluting a barrel is weight reduction, right? We're just carving metal out of that piece of metal so that we're losing some weight, which is good. But the reason we twist the flutes is to maintain its original barrel profile, so it maintains its rigidity, which is good. When you start making thinner spots in the metal, you start opening up the door to, weak spots and different things where you might get some movement in that barrel that you don't want as that round goes off. And so that spiral cut makes sure that original profile stays nice and rigid. So it creates more surface area with the air around the barrel, right? There's more metal touching the air, and so it cools a little quicker, which is nice.
Cool. So what we learned, guys, from all of that information is it's an awesome rifle, but also don't twist it counterclockwise, twist it clockwise on the bolt, so you can take your bolt apart to clean it.
It will go counterclockwise, and then you just gotta,
obviously, yeah.
All you gotta do is twist it back the other way hard.
Yeah,
it takes a second, but you'll get it.
Yeah. I'll take care of that. And then you guys obviously, make your own mags.
Yep, hand laid carbon fiber magazines. We do the long actions as well as the AICS, short action patterns, which is super cool. So it's a 3-round mag. You can purchase additional mags separately so that you have, I run 2 or 3 mags loaded every time I'm in the woods or doing anything hunting. If I'm running those carbon fiber mags, if I'm shooting off a bench, I'll usually run like a 5 or a more capacity round magazine, just so I don't have to sit and reload every 3 shots. But when I'm in the mountains hunting animals, I have one loaded in the gun, I have one in my pocket, and I usually have an extra one in my backpack.
Perfect. Sweet. Okay, I think that covers all the bases there. I think that's an amazing rifle for the price, especially like you were saying, why you guys, and I love that you created it with the consumer in mind. Some people are still going to look at it and say that's a high price rifle. Well, yes, compared to what though?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to look at. Like if you're just getting into it, there are some rifles that'll do the job. If you shoot, you have 1 tag a year, you bring it out to just zero it, and that's it. Like there's some other definitely basic setups, but it's not going to last you nearly as long, and you're not going to have the cross-platform accuracy. If you're going to go into Target or something else, you're going to end up having to buy another rifle. And so, again, for those out there saying, that still high-priced rifle, yes, but compared to what, is what I would then say, because it's just there's no comparison to anything else, cheaper. Out there on the market. It just does things so much better. And then of course you guys make rifles that are like the PH1, where if you want to go the carbon fiber route, they're a little bit more expensive, and then you kind of can go up from there depending on, again, what your application is. So with that, I guess what would be, I guess let's just say if someone wants to step it up, maybe they started with we'll just say like a Ruger American or Mossberg Patriot or something. Now they're like, all right, I need to step up my game. I want a nicer rifle. I'm not ready to drop $4,000 on a completely custom rifle. That $1,800 looks good to me. Sub 2,000. What would you say for someone who's a hunter that maybe plinks with his buddies long distance, 1,000 yards? What would you say as far as caliber in the PH2? What would you set them up with?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's hard to give opinions on calibers because everybody has a pet cartridge, and nothing's better than that in their opinion.
Oh, so you're not a 6.5 need more guy?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. People ask all the time, like, what do you shoot? And I'm like, whatever is available. Right? Like,
yeah.
So I'm a 30 cal kind of guy generally for hunting. So I usually run a 300 Win Mag just because I hunt in the West, so I hunt a lot of elk and I hunt a lot of mule deer and things like that. So I like having the knockdown power that the 300 Win Mag provides without absolutely obliterating the animal. The 300 PRC is another really good option in that regard. The thing that's nice about the 300 Winnie and the 300 PRC is they're also, very capable of long range shooting, right? So I can engage targets, 1,400 yards, out to a mile even, right? And not have to be like holding all of the mills for elevation, right? So that's where I like to lean. However, I've seen a ton of success in hunting and in competition shooting or target shooting with like the 6.5. The 6.5 Creedmoor does the job. 6.5 PRC is a great platform. The 7 PRC now is just kind of taking the industry by storm. 28 Nosler, which is the platform you have, just there's some really, really great calibers out there that are capable of crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's. And it really just comes down to personal preference. What I recommend to people that are just getting into it is, don't buy a howitzer out of the gate because you might not love shooting it, right? Go with a 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 PRC, something that's going to give you the taste of like, oh, this is super fun. I love this. It's a blast. But it's not like every time you go to pull the trigger, you're like, and there's kit to help, muzzle brakes and suppressors help with recoil mitigation and different things like that. But for someone who's just diving into it, there's nothing wrong with going with something a little bit smaller, that's not going to just absolutely abuse you. But, like I said, if people ask my personal opinion, I'm always going to say 300 Win Mag or 300 PRC. So
cool. Yeah. And honestly, so, I've shot a 300 PRC. I haven't shot a 300 Win Mag. I know they're similar.
Yep.
I killed a deer with a 300 PRC, 450-yard shot. That thing was like a laser beam. The deer dropped like right there. Yep. And it was, it was nothing. And that's a great round. But again, it's funny though, because 300 Win Mag has the reputation of being a butt kicker. And I remember being in, I think it was Colorado last year when I was getting my elk tag just at Walmart. And these two old men, like, I love listening to old men talk. Like, they're just, especially outdoorsy old men.
Yeah.
They have the funniest stories, or just, the way they banter with each other. And these guys go up and they're looking at the knives and the pistols and stuff in Walmart, and then he's like, hey, do you have any 300 Win Mag? And his buddy kind of gives him this look like, you trying to blow your shoulder off? Is what he said to him. Yeah. And that's kind of that's what it's known for. But like you said, there's muzzle brakes, suppressors, and way to mitigate that, which people will notice. I think on the PH2 you offer a carbon barrel, right? Or is that just the PH1?
No. So some clarification, just so your listeners aren't confused. The PH1 was retired when we launched the PH2. Okay. So it just was the next.
I'm thinking of the Element then.
So the Element is the same carbon composite stock, but it's the aluminum action instead of the stainless steel. So the Element comes in at like 5.5 pounds versus the PH2, which is the model you have that you just showed everybody. That one comes in like at 7 pounds. So we don't do carbon fiber barrels. Because in all of our testing, which is extensive, it's not just, we tried it once and it didn't work or whatever. Like we've tested hundreds of barrels, carbon fiber versus hardened steel. And where it came to heat dispersion versus, accuracy, getting lightweight, we were able to get our Mountain Hunter profile barrels with those flutes and things in it down to within 3 ounces of most of the carbon fiber barrels on the market. Gotcha. So weight wasn't an issue anymore. And then just barrel life and rigidity and repeatable performance, the hardened steel performed better every time. That doesn't mean that carbon fiber isn't super sexy and looks super awesome. 100% agree with that. And they do get super light and they are phenomenal. There are phenomenal carbon fiber barrels out there. I'm not knocking carbon fiber at all. But the process usually makes the gun like $1,000 more. So rather than, charging someone $1,000 for a carbon fiber barrel that performs at the same level as the hardened steel that we can manufacture for way less, we're going to do it the more cost-effective way for the customer, right? Well, that makes sense. Out of the custom shop, we do some carbon fiber barrels, kind of on like the custom gun builds that we do. But again, that's something we have an in-house carbon fiber team that does all of our mags and a couple different pieces and accessories that we do on the hit and the chassis, the new lightweight chassis, the slam chassis, right? That's a lot of carbon fiber. So we've done carbon fiber barrels and we can do them, but we're just going to keep running hardened steel on the standard production stuff just because they perform the same. So might as well save people $1,000 on a standard production semi-custom gun, and if they really want the carbon fiber barrels, we can do it. It's just an extra $1,000.
Yeah.
So,
If you want the carbon fiber. Cool. I'm gonna take a quick break here. My dog apparently needs to go out. Usually he's good at this, but he's whining, so
no rush.
I'd prefer that not to happen in my office. So
Don't blame me.
we're gonna take a brief break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, got my dog taken care of. He's gonna have to hang outside while we finish this because I'm not dealing with puppy mess right now. So while we were waiting or while we we're offline here, I figured this out. I got the shroud back to, so here you'll see whenever you pull your bolt out, there's a tiny little notch that's resting in. Now, what is this part called? The this part right here.
So that's going to be the firing pin retainer.
Okay, so the firing pin retainer fits into this little notch on this piece here. There's a little tiny notch. If you take it and you turn it clockwise, that whole shroud pops out. And then you can pull this out, which I'm not going to pull it too far because I dropped the firing pin retainer or whatever what's this thing called?
That's just a cross pin that holds the bolt head in place.
Yeah. So I pulled the cross pin out on accident, but I almost imploded the whole thing. And yeah, no, not really. But
It's super easy. If that pin comes out, that head comes off, and you just slide the head back on, put the pin back in, and drop the firing pin back down. You're good to go.
Yeah. So you pull it out, clean it, and then just from here you compress this shroud back towards the bolt there, and then twist it back to where you'll hear it kind of. Let's see if my microphone will pick it up right there. And then it's back to where it was. And if you turn it to the left, it's in firing position. So don't do counterclockwise. Clockwise. Yeah. Go clockwise.
You had to man hands it for a second to get it out of there. But if you do drop it into that position, you just twist it back, and it just requires a little more force, and you're good to go.
Perfect. Okay, so with that, so we were just talking, and I would agree, just again with my limited knowledge, and with my son getting into hunting, I put him on a 308 with a muzzle brake because it's just a solid round. You can find it everywhere.
Yep.
Good beginner round, but I think 6.5's kind of taken over that. From people that I trust that kill a lot of animals, they try and keep 6.5 within 400 to 500 yards at the most on an animal. On elk, they try and keep it within 300 yards, just from their experience and their trusting in the ballistics and the energy transfer. Whereas 6.5 PRC, they've said that's a great round for hunting, good combination between 6.5 and not getting into the crazy magnum rounds. And then of course 7 PRC is everywhere right now. That's the hot round, but it does punch a lot more than the 6.5. So
yeah,
you have to make that decision yourself. But I would agree. It's like a pistol.
Right.
Where you won't carry it. If you have the biggest, nicest SIG or Glock and it's decked out and all this stuff, but you put it in your waistband and it's uncomfortable, it's going to be a safe princess or a ranged princess, and you won't carry it, right? So you got to find something that you'll want to use, and then also, is something that is ethically going to kill an animal if you put a bullet through the animal.
Yeah, when it comes to caliber choice, I try to tell people to go shoot everything you can, right? Like, because some guys are built big enough that recoil's not that big of a deal, right? Like they can absorb that well enough. And so they like getting into those larger calibers for more energy, better distance shooting, better ballistics, whatever. But there's a lot of female hunters and youth hunters out there that they need an option that allows them to comfortably and effectively, ethically shoot an animal. And the entire system, including the ammo, comes into that equation, right? So get out and shoot everything that you can, because then you find what you love.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. It's, and again, I keep going back to archery because I know so many people listening are into archery, but it's very similar with bows. Like I may shoot a brand and a certain poundage, but I'll tell you all day, go into the bow shop. Especially if you're new to archery, don't link to a brand because of someone that you've seen on social media or someone that even if you trust, you believe them, you're a good friend with them, you still need to go in and find something because your hand's going to be different. Your bone structure is different. Your draw length and draw weight's going to be different. The way it hits the cam system for me is going to be different from someone with a longer draw length. So it may not feel as comfortable. There's so many things that go into it. Same thing with rifles. length of pull is a big deal. Learning how to grip it properly with that palm swell versus a traditional hunting rifle stock. All those things come into play. And so it's definitely a personal preference thing, but also you want to make sure you don't go too light to where you're shooting a 25 long rifle into a bull. That's not that's not going to do it. So that is kind of an extreme example, but in all reality, make sure you've got a hard hitting caliber, but one that you're comfortable with shooting, and you're not going to flinch because you're worried about the recoil when you have that bull or buck in front of you.
Yeah. Sidebar, I forgot to mention, I didn't forget, I thought about it earlier, but it wasn't the right time, but I shot an elk 2 days ago with my bow. So,
sweet.
yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm a gun guy, but I love archery hunting too. So,
man, you've been busy. So you killed an elk with a bow, came back and had a litter of puppies.
yeah, it's been a rough couple of nights.
And I forgot to mention, you volunteer at your kid's school, which is awesome. I love when parents get involved in the school system and show up. And we had a situation recently with our son where it wasn't anything too crazy, but there was some kids lying about each other, normal fourth grade stuff. And I knew I'd be out of town hunting next week, and the principal was trying to schedule the meeting for next week. I was like, got time today? She was like, are you available? I was like, yeah, of course, it's my son. I don't care what it is. I'll show up. So yeah, my wife and I showed up, and she was like, we usually don't have parents that are this involved. I'm like, I'm involved. Yeah, this is what you get.
Like you made the decision to have kids, that becomes your life, in my opinion, right? Yeah, I volunteer at the school periodically. Just the principal at the elementary school, the community I live in, he's very conscientious of parent involvement and safety in the school, and so he likes having dads around whenever they're capable and available. So I'm not here all the time by any means. I'm actually here right now. I'm in a little broom closet that they made room for the dads that are capable of being around, that maybe work from home or whatever. So I'm here periodically, just when they need an extra hand at the school, just to make sure everything's good. There's never been an issue here, but schools are schools. Just want to make sure that my kids are safe and having a good time, and my involvement here is a good thing. So lots of parents do it.
Danny doesn't just have big whiteboards and fire alarms on his wall in his office.
Yes,
that works.
Right. I'm clearly in a carpeted wall environment. People probably think I'm in an insane asylum. But
oh man, that's awesome. Okay, so I think you explained really well. The stainless barrels versus carbon. Again, like you said, nothing against that if you want to go full custom, but it's one of those things where I like how, because you guys do offer custom. You offer a bunch of different things, and I'm not going to get huge into the carbines and tactical because it's not my realm.
Sure.
Much less, than the bolt action guns. I love my ARs, but I'm not well versed on that. Even less well versed, obviously, on the bolts here because I screwed that up. But I just like the idea of long range. I love the idea of that precision. It's very, except for the explosion, it's similar to me to archery, where it's almost meditative, where you work on your breathing, you're working on your grip, you're relaxing rather than tensing up, and you're trying to get better and more precise. And so that's kind of why I like that. Don't get me wrong, I love going and spraying bullets with an AR or anything like that, but bolt guns I definitely gravitate towards. So if you guys have any questions out there that are listening more about the AR style rifles they have, or the SB10 or anything like that, definitely reach out to Danny and the people over at Seekins, and they'll be able to walk you through those, because they make some amazing, even not just parts, but full assembled rifles that you can order. So all of that, going back to the stainless, I like how you explained that there's kind of this bell curve. You guys created the PH2 to have the best at the price point that you could get for the customer, and you're kind of at that top of that bell curve. You start going down this way, and you're going to spend more on a carbon barrel. You're going to get maybe a little bit more performance out of the 3 ounces or whatever that you're gaining, but you're spending a lot for those 3 ounces. It's just like going from lightweight packing to ultralight. You start paying a lot more for that because it's got the ultralight tag to it, right. And the custom fitting and certain other things that you guys may be able to do further down that bell curve. You're going to spend more money, but you're also you're gaining very little for that extra money that you're spending, versus on this side of the bell curve where you're spending very little money and you're getting just cheap stuff. It'll
Yeah.
work, but it's not going to last you a long time, and you're not going to be able to be as consistent as you will with, for example, that pH2. So
Yeah.
I think,
To that point, so I don't mean to cut you off, but like,
oh, you're good.
there's customers all along that spectrum, for whatever they're into and comfortable for. So like, like you said, the PH2 is kind of the pinnacle of that bell curve. You capture all of the features that you would want out of a custom rifle, with a standard production price tag, right? Versus custom gun prices, 4, 5, 6, 10 grand, for a lot of the same features. And the guys that are spending that kind of money because they're chasing those couple of ounces, it's because they need those couple. They're cutting the handle off their toothbrush before they go on their tar hunt in New Zealand, or whatever, right? Like, there's a reason for those few ounces and the cost for those few ounces and why people are okay paying that. Or not just a few ounces, but even other features of the rifle and the system itself. But and then there's the guy that's like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't want to spend $2,000 on a gun, but I want a gun that's going to shoot okay. So there's a handful of platforms out there that are accurate rifles that are, $800, right? And that's a great option for those guys. And I would never knock anyone on that spectrum, for being where they are on that spectrum. But I think you're right. The PH2 just really hits the peak of that curve where they get all the features that they would really ever need or want out of a high performing rifle for the price tag of $1,895, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you're getting into that crossover between, there's some guns out there that I'm speaking from secondhand, or I guess third-hand experience, because the person's telling me about it, but that are targeted as there's guns that are put out there as a crossover style gun, target and hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy just got back from a long range shoot, and he has one of those. I won't mention the name of the brand because it's an amazing brand. It's just, he was saying, I wish I had spent the extra money and gotten a hunting rifle and a target rifle.
Yeah.
Because he said it's really not amazing at either, and I want something that's amazing at both rather than okay at both.
Yeah.
And you'll find that in a lot of, and that's in any industry. You find something that does too many things, it's not amazing at any of them. It just does them well.
Yeah, jack of all trades. Ace in them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, is there anything else, about Seekins or your rifles or anything that you want to highlight before we hop off here? And I think this will come out, if I'm not mistaken, probably October-ish time frame.
Time for hunts.
So, yeah. So, is there anything that you, between now and then, that you have set in stone that you would like for people to look for, if it comes out, October or even November, if we need to push it back?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you decide to put it out, put it out. Sorry for the school bell that just went off.
Oh,
good.
Get
Anyway,
class.
yeah, right. The number one thing I always tell people, because people ask me all the time, like, why Seekins over, any of the other manufacturers out there, which there are many that are phenomenal manufacturers, that make good guns, similar price points, similar features. I mean, you can go through the industry and find dozens of guns that are playing in the same ballpark as us. But the number one reason why Seekins over anybody else is because of three primary reasons. The number one reason is we have a no questions asked lifetime warranty, right? So you mentioned earlier, some people might be like, it's still $2,000. That's a lot of money for a gun. I don't know if I really want to spring for that. One of the nice benefits about springing for a Seekins at that price point is no matter what happens to that rifle, including operator error, we will replace it, repair it, fix it, no questions asked, right? It's a funny story. We usually want to hear it, right? Like we've heard some doozies about how someone's gun got broke or blew up or what, burned in a house. Like,
so what you're saying is you don't want people to walk in like they do into a bow shop, which I help out at Wild Arrow quite a bit up here. I'm lucky to have those guys 10 minutes from my house. But then they're an amazing bow shop. But I love when people bring their bow in, and I'm no bow tech, but I know enough about bows to know when there's a dry fire. And when they come and they're like, I don't know what happened. And they hand the bow off. They're like, I have no idea what happened. Can you guys put the strings back? And it's like the strings are busted apart. The cams are bent. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it to the back. And I take it back there. And the guys are like, what's his story? I'm like, he has no idea what happened, you know?
He was just sitting in the back seat and it.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it was in the heat, and I went to go,
Yeah.
they, Wild Arrow definitely prefers it too. When you walk in and you're like, hey, I was stupid and forgot to load an arrow or whatever, right? They want to hear the story too. Now they can't guarantee that, but I think it's cool that you're like, and guys, I will say, check your ammo. Like, don't be stupid and feed a 308 into a 7 mil or whatever. Like, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
300 blackout into a 55C, or 556. It's just, don't be that guy because you can get hurt. But I think it's cool that you guys have that warranty and that you want to hear the stories. You're not trying to shame people, but you'll kind of laugh with them about it.
Yeah, we've never shared a story, that was personal to somebody, but some people will be like, we'll ask like, oh, that's kind of funny. Do you mind if we see, can we post that on social media with the picture? And like, yeah, for sure. But like I said, we have a no questions asked lifetime warranty that follows the rifle, not the owner, not like the original purchaser. Cool. So you can buy a Seekins at a pawn shop that an angry divorced wife sold off. And as long as it's Seekins Precision, we'll take care of it. You don't need to be the original owner, which is pretty cool. So that's the number one. Is it's a true, like, no questions asked. We will take care of you, right? The second reason is our shooter satisfaction guarantee, which is, people ask us all the time what our MOA guarantee is, right? All of our guns across all the platforms are half MOA capable for sure, right? Wow. And so the reason we don't say like half MOA guns is because there's a lot of people that buy it that are not half MOA shooters.
Yeah.
And, they go shoot a 4-inch group and they're not super happy, right? Because the box said I should be able to shoot half MOA. And I'm not saying that, like, not that long ago, 6 years ago, I was not a half MOA shooter, right? Like even today, like being a half MOA shooter, like I said earlier, depends on how much Monster I drank this morning, right?
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of days I go to the range and I crack off, 10, 15 rounds and I box it up and go home because that's just not my day. But then there's other days where I'm putting rounds on top of rounds and I'm making clovers out of, 3 and 5 round groups. The guns are very capable of half MOA for sure. But what our shooter satisfaction guarantee is instead of like a half MOA guarantee, it is we guarantee that our rifle will perform to your standard of accuracy, whatever that may be, right? And we will work with you hand in hand to make it so. So that means that we will work that customer through their entire system, right? Again, I mentioned the systems, gun, glass, rings, ammo, shooter. And so, we get very few accuracy MOA or RMAs back at the shop. But when we do, the very first thing we do is we pull it out. We ask the customer what ammo they're shooting. If it's hand loads, we ask them to send some of that with the gun, so we can try to recreate exactly what they're doing, right? And we'll run it down and we'll test fire it. And a lot of times it's we'll test fire it and we'll put 3 rounds inside a half an inch. And we'll call the customer and be like, hey, here's your rifle serial number, blah, 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 blah. Here's the group we just shot. We either send them a picture or even FaceTime the customer sometimes, right, if they're capable. And just be like, is that acceptable? And they'll be like, yes, that's amazing. What did you do? And we'll be like, pulled it out of the box and shot it. Which we're not saying it's you, but now we know it's not the gun. So let's talk through the rest of your system. What glass are you using? What rings do you have? Do you know the torque settings for your rings? The ammo that you said you're using, is that what you're actually using, right? Like there's so many variables that go into being a successful shooter, and we try to help that customer address all of those variables so that they actually feel like that they've been taken care of, maybe educated a little bit on their equipment. Like, hey, you bought a $2,000 rifle and a $50 scope at Walmart. Let's look at that equation a little bit and see maybe there's some better glass, and we'll give them contacts with some of our partners that we work with, Vortex, Night Force, different companies, Leopold, and just be like, hey, call this guy. He's a great guy. He's a rep for these guys. He'll get you squared away, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So we try to help that customer have a positive shooting experience instead of just saying, hey, it's a half MOA gun. You couldn't shoot that. Man, that sucks to suck. Oh well. Right.
I love that. And I'll say it, guys, it's you. It's not the equipment.
Yeah.
short of, I know Danny's being very nice, and that's fine. I'm gonna say it. It's you, man, or woman, whoever you are. Like I recommend, and it's not that I mean, Danny's not paying me, guys. I just know Danny's a good dude, and they make really good equipment. And like I was talking to him earlier about, and it's not a Seekins that my son is shooting for his hunt, but I know that gun that he's shooting is capable of 1 MOA, easy with the right shooter. But he's shooting at 100 yards, a 3 to 4 inch group. I'm fine with that for hunting. And I know that him being the first time that he's actually focusing on, he's got so many things going through his head, figuring out how to not have any parallax and not have the black ring around the scope, and getting his cheek rest right and getting his hold right and pulling through the trigger and more recoil than what he's used to in a 22 and all these things. He's got all that going on. I'm not trying to get him to 1 MOA.
Yeah.
I'm like 3 to 4 inches at 100 yards. We are solid.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to kill him.
Yeah. And I didn't, I'm not calling that, company up, hey, your bolt gun, blah, blah, like it's just, it's something that you kind of have to, you have to take into account and make sure you've got it. On your best day, what are you shooting? And then on your worst day, what are you shooting? Kind of average that out. And hopefully it's good enough to go hunting with, or whatever it is. And if it's not the half MOA or 1 MOA that you're looking for, go hire a coach and have someone that can look into it for you. Go to a long range class that's suggested and has references from people that you trust that are good at long range shooting. And those are things that, again, I'm going to get into because I know that I'm not capable of half MOA groups, and I would love to get to at least a 1 MOA group consistently with the rifles that I have, and learning and building a foundation. So again, look at yourself before you point out the equipment, unless there's something very obviously wrong, like a bulge in the barrel or something like that.
Sure.
Check yourself first, and then call Seekins and say, hey guys, I need some help.
Yeah. And if it ever is an issue with the firearm itself, like head spacing's off by 1 thou or whatever, right? Like we will, obviously, with that same warranty in place, take care of it, right? We'll replace it, repair it, fix it, no questions asked. So we will work with you hand in hand.
Last but not least, you mentioned everything's made there. At least the vast majority of it is made in house, and all of it is it's a U.S. manufactured rifle. So that's something else you're getting. You're not getting Chinese parts, Japanese parts, anything else. Like if you're big on U.S., you also understand that it's going to cost a little bit more to have things sourced, made, manufactured, put together, everything here in the U.S. So factor that into account, and the fact that you can do all of that and still have it at a sub $2,000 gun is impressive to me. So, I definitely recommend it to people that are looking to take a next step up from their basic gun that maybe they started with, their grandpa handed down to them, whatever. It's definitely a great place to go. And people like Danny and their customer support will definitely walk you through what you need and what would best fit you. They're not just going to throw something at you to sell you something. They want to make sure you're getting the right gun in your hands that will do the job that you're looking for to do. So, is there anything else that you wanted to hit on there, Danny, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, the third one is Seekins is a big family. We're just, some of us are family. Like me and my brother work together, which is easily the best part of my job. He's my hero in every sense of the word, has been since I was a little kid. So that's a blast that I get to work with him on a day-to-day basis, and I'm grateful to God for that every day. He's also been my primary shooting instructor, he's the only reason I'm any good at shooting is because Maddie's taught me everything he knows, which is a lot. But the Seekins, all the employees together, Glenn Seekins himself, right? Like he's created this culture of family within the company, and the way that we view it, every one of us in that shop and that are employed by Seekins, we view our customers that purchase any of our products, whether it's a complete rifle or a set of scope rings or a safety selector for your AR, like you invested in our company, you're a part of our family, and that's why we have the warranty and the shooter satisfaction guarantee, because we're not just making guns and they go out the door and we couldn't care less what happens at that point. We actually care about every customer that buys our product, and that sounds like a line, but if you've ever dealt with us on a customer service aspect, I hope you know and feel, and you could attest to it yourself, that you're not just a number or a person. You're a part of our family. So that's another thing that sets us apart. I think, as that, I said 3 reasons, right? The lifetime warranty, shooter satisfaction guarantee, and then if you buy a Seekins product, you're a part of the Seekins family, and we're going to try to treat you that way.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. It says a lot about the company again that you guys treat people the way that you do, especially with the volume of orders that you take in, and there's just so many things that go into it. So, and guys, come on, you're not going to get that Urban Shadow on any other rifle. Like, it's just not going to happen. You want that orange. You gotta have a certain amount of orange anyway while you're hunting. So why not put it on your rifle?
Right. Exactly. I need to check with the Fish and Game if like the orange on my face coincides with that or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Then I might just go shirtless, man. Like,
Right.
if that all counts as orange, like I don't even need a vest at that point.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh man. All right. Well, guys, highly recommend that you go check it out. I'm going to leave the social media links and of course the website down below. Go get in. I'm imagining you guys have an email list as well.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely the best way to reach customers with social media kind of blocking, shadow banning, whatever happens with gun stuff. I just had a couple of buddies that work at Dead Air Silencers that their accounts were just shut off, and they're not even that big, and they were just out shooting with their dad, which you would think, family time should be encouraged, but their account was shut down. So go follow them on social media, but also go get in on the email list and go check out the website. If you guys are in the rifle market, make sure you go and check out Seekins. I highly recommend it. And of course, go for the Urban Shadow. We got to bump those numbers up, guys. It's got to be the -- selling color. Can't have the green of the FDE beating the Urban Shadow.
Yeah,
So
the mountain shadows in the lead, but both the urban and the desert, they're both right there. They could take the lead away from the mountain shadow.
Yeah, well, second's first loser, so we got to get to first place there.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again, Danny, for your time. Guys, go check them out. Again, I'll leave those links down below. And like I always say, get out, live your life, and love it. Hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. Danny is an outstanding individual, very knowledgeable in what he does, loves to do things with his family, go outdoors, loves hunting, and of course, loves long-range shooting and the company Seekins Precision. So all of that, guys, Danny is just a great dude. I'm going to leave the links down below where you can find Seekins Precision. You can find Danny. And of course, if you're looking to make any purchases for yourself or for any gear that you've got going on this season, definitely let me know if you have any questions. Use the links down below. Support the channel, support the partners of the show, and get the best deals possible. Have a fantastic rest of your day, guys. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.